Okay, we're going to get started in a couple minutes. Just give everybody a chance to grab some food and come sit down. There is hot lava up here, so just be really careful if you come to the front. And we'll start in a second. Okay. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody out today. For those of you that don't know, my name is Matthew Holman. I'm the founder of Commerce Catalyst. And we're doing an AI event today for two main reasons. One, I was really running into a lot of walls on scheduling speakers, and since I know when I'm available, it was easier just to schedule myself. But two, I've been to a lot of AI stuff, and as somebody who uses a lot of AI, I start to get a little frustrated sometimes about how it's talked about or explained, because there's a lot of varying degrees of knowledge, understanding, experience. And so this is a little bit of a, I want to talk about AI in a way that makes sense for me and everybody that I work with. And so that's what this is. So, okay, as we kind of get, yeah, that's the, okay, I mean, that's the fun little title, Practical Tactical. Bomi wrote that. It's much more creative than I would do. Okay, so first up, I want to introduce Ryan Berg. He's our lunch sponsor from Talenta Commerce. Ryan and I used to work together years ago. He was working in a company called Move Method. I was working in a company called Aspen Shoots. They were owned by the group that started eHub, for those of you that are familiar with that company. So we've been friends for a really long time. He's been heavily involved in Commerce Catalyst from the very beginning. Just recently, somebody was dropping a question in Slack about an issue at checkout, and Ryan jumped in there with all of these troubleshooting questions. So if you don't know Ryan yet, I highly recommend connecting with him. He does a lot of really cool stuff, which he's going to talk about right now.
This is it's on. Yeah, so I run an agency called Talenta Commerce. During the height of COVID, it was an employee agency, and now it's just myself. And one of the things that I try to do is just drive revenue and solve problems. So not really here with like a big pitch about pitching the agency or anything, but I wanted to come today like Matt was talking about with AI and talk about real solutions, and hopefully I'll have some time after Matt's done to talk about that. But I have been doing this for 6 years with Talenta Commerce. Many years before that involved in e-commerce, so I've seen everything from the fulfillment side to being the guy in the warehouse picking and pulling orders, all the way up to development side of Shopify and BigCommerce and multi-channel e-commerce. A lot of experience there with issues and problems and things, seen a lot of different things go wrong. And so if you ever have issues, you just need like somebody to run something by, I'm happy to help out.
And he's really active on Slack too, so thank you, Ryan. Okay. All right. So I realized as I prepared these, I didn't do like a screen up front, so forgive me if I look at what I wrote up here. But so I was talking a little bit about what we're going to do here. So the goal here is I'm going to talk for 30, 40 minutes and walk through a bunch of examples. I've got a ton of stuff up here. We're actually live streaming this for the first time, which I'm going to talk about because AI has made that possible. So there's a YouTube link that everybody got messaged on the through registration, so you can always watch this afterwards. If you'd like access to the slides, I'm happy to. I'll probably just drop those as a link in the YouTube. But the goal here is I want you to walk away. This is more about how you should be thinking about and using AI, and less about what you can build. Although I'm going to show examples of what I'm doing and other people are doing to explain some of this thought process and how you could be incorporating that into your personal work, your personal life, your business or businesses. And then at the end, after I speak, I've got 3 guest speakers that are going to come up. Ryan Berg is one of them. I've got Eric Farmer here, and we've got Aaron Rollins, and they're all going to show different things, a different thing that they've built with AI. And it's going to be short. They're not going to like show you everything and of how it get built. More of, hey, this is what we've made, so that you can start to see. I'm trying to work on the foundations with you right now. They're trying to show you a lot of the stuff that you can get that's a little more polished or advanced, okay? So as we kind of dive into it, first, who here is tired of hearing about what people are doing with AI? Because I'm actually kind of tired of that too. Who here thinks that there are companies out there with 20 AI agents that have replaced all of their employees and that's their entire revenue channel? Like, yeah, maybe. I think that the people that are doing that probably aren't talking about it, or you've run into them because their AI agents have DM'd you on LinkedIn and it's very obvious that they're an AI agent. It is getting better. There are a lot of improvements, but there's so much hype out there right now. And I think one of the biggest things to differentiate is when we see in the news, we see in the media talking about AI, there is this entire stratosphere up here that is enterprise, that are Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 companies. They have a totally different set of problems and perspective when it comes to AI. These are the companies that are spending billions of dollars on investing in joint ventures around data projects, that are buying hundreds of $millions worth of credit from OpenAI, and they are all struggling to figure out how to use AI. Some of the biggest reports coming out is that all these massive companies are outlaying all these dollars and they're getting nothing for it because they don't know exactly what to do. The company and the people are not moving in lockstep. Now, for small businesses, there are millions of tools and there are more being developed all the time. So when we're thinking about AI, we really want to just try to pay attention to what you know is possible, what people you know are doing, and what people you're seeing that are that we can start to have some, modicum of trust there. And yeah, there's a lot of simple things or complex. So I'm just curious, who is using AI in at least a basic, like I ask ChatGPT questions pretty consistently? Okay, who here has built like a workflow or something that it utilizes a skill file or some kind of process? Okay, who here has developed an app? Okay, what about a website or some other kind of software or service? Okay, so good mix. Who here feels like, I got it, we're cruising, this is the best thing ever? Okay, I'm seeing a couple hands like this. All right, yeah, absolutely, okay. All right, so, aw man, that thing better render, because I have a ton of screen shares. Hold on one second. Okay. All right, that is a big relief when you screenshot like 20 Claude conversations. Okay, so let's just think about stages of this. I do kind of like want to walk through a little bit of this. I've been using ChatGPT for like 2-3 years. I think I first started, I'm trying to remember the first time I used it, but I was using it for some content creation early on. I actually like got my wife to use it to help her write church talks. Like honestly, because she was trying to bang her head into the wall about creating outlines and stuff, and now she's using ChatGPT to come up with fun game ideas to play in Sunday school. So you know, but a lot of this is really simple. So like research, how-to questions. I put therapy up here because that's one of the things that people are worried about with AI is that Gen Z or younger people are actually now asking mental health questions to ChatGPT instead of maybe a friend or somebody who's a human being, and that ChatGPT is often just saying, yeah, you're right, they're horrible, they're the worst. Like they're just agreeing with everything somebody says. Brainstorming. So this is an example question I asked just the other day. Like, hey, Aura Ring versus Whoop, break them down for me. Oh yeah, now I remember one of the first uses I had for ChatGPT. I don't know why it took me a second. Was actually coming up with the name Commerce Catalyst. I was like kind of like this pressed to think of a new name. It used to be Marketers Unite, and I just did a bunch of prompts with AI to come up with a name, right? So it's just simple things like that. But we can get more complex. So this is an example I wanted to show you of. As part of our event business, I'm constantly looking for sponsors for our conferences and stuff. So I actually gave Claude, a project where I said, hey, here's a couple of conferences that I know have sponsors that match our ICP. Go look at all these, start creating a list for me. It starts creating a list, and then I told it, now go find contacts for all these companies on LinkedIn. Okay? And then the last prompt I give it is now start ranking these based on what you know about my business. Because I prompt and use Claude all the time. And it comes up with this output. It's a huge thing. It's got all tabs. It starts ranking them. It's got contacts. It actually searched through my email to see if I had people that it could connect me with already. So AI is already right there, like being really willing to help. Another couple ways of like this is we had an AI and e-com event in January, and I took all of the recordings that we had made, and I dropped them into Claude. And I said, hey, give me a summary of some key talking points from these videos. I gave it the attendee list that it came, and I said, I want you to draft an email where you're sharing these recordings, give it the high-level takeaways, and then create email drafts in Gmail. So it went and wrote 90 emails, and the thing that I didn't tell it to do, I didn't tell it about different types of people, but it came back and told me, hey, for anybody that was at a brand, I gave them a couple of, I did research on their brand. I asked it to do that. Say it's a supplement company. The supplement company, I told them X, Y, and Z is relevant. For any agencies that were there, I said this is what would work for your clients. And then if it was a software company or another vendor, I said, hey, this might be useful information for your partners. So AI already started going one step further than what I prompted it with to try to make that kind of information more useful. But again, this is something that I normally would never have done. Normally, I would have just sent a group email to everybody with the links to the recordings and a couple of key takeaways that I found relevant, and that's it, because I don't have hours out of my day to personalize follow-ups for this event or any event, really. But AI let me do something. It took me about 5-10 minutes, and then I just went through and I just clicked send on a lot of these emails. So it took another 15-20 minutes to vet those. But now I was able to do a personalized outreach, and it wasn't complex. It was just me kind of prompting AI to do that. Okay, live streaming. This is kind of the funnest one. So I've wanted to live stream in the past. Oh, the camera's like way over here, Bomi. Would you maybe use the remote or I'm walking around too much? So I've wanted to live stream in the past. Who here has had like a problem like that? Like you think about setting up a podcast studio, or you want to do something maybe a little bit cool, and you start to Google that and watch YouTube videos, but it's not really as specific as you might need it to be. That's what I run into all the time when I'm trying to think of something cool. Live streaming is one of those things. We've wanted to do it, but cameras seem too expensive. It seems really complex. I mean, how the hell do you live stream, right? Well, Claude, and I have this conversation part of this. So right here, This is a picture I took because when I was setting this up the other day to test it, I was like, Claude, this is the picture I'm looking at of the soundboard. Where do I plug in the cord? Yeah, notice this. Just plug it straight into this big socket on the left. So what Claude did was it started putting a shopping list together of all the different stuff that I needed. And it gave me ranges. Here's a beginner, here's an intermediate, here's an expense, and it was all about expense, right? So I was able to filter through those things. Now, it wasn't done in seconds because it doesn't always know what's right or what I want. So I started you have to prompt it a little bit. But the fun part is then I tell it to create a shopping list. It starts finding everything. I tell it to just make sure I get Amazon links wherever possible. And I start researching some of the stuff. Now, what makes it kind of interesting, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is AI is not always right. There are plenty of times where it says, this plug will go into this soundboard, which is what I was dealing with. And I said, hey, no, it doesn't. Oh, you're right. I just realized the soundboard you're using is version 2, not version 3, and you need this cord instead. And that happens all the time with AI. We're going to talk more about that. You have to get used to AI sounding really confident, and you have to be okay saying that doesn't make sense. All right, so here's another example. I run a subscription consultancy in addition to Commerce Catalyst. So I work with brands. We work on subscriber acquisition, all this stuff. I've had a newsletter for about 3+ years now, a podcast for 2+ years. And some of the earliest adoption for using AI was just helping AI take a video transcript and help me get more content out of it. But what I have built and what we're going to get into with skill files is a fairly sophisticated process where I take a YouTube video from an interview or me solo recording. There's a transcript. AI loves transcripts, not video. So it helps sometimes to load a video up on YouTube and just make it unlisted if you want to get a free transcript that AI can use, just as a quick tip. I drop a transcript. My Claude, and I've used OpenClaw and a few others with this, will then take that transcript, write a YouTube titles that I can pick from, a YouTube description. It writes my newsletter based on a bunch of resource and skills and outputs. The newsletter has never been better. And then it creates social posts for LinkedIn and Twitter that both tease the episode as it's coming out and content related to that week's episode, and it schedules all of them for me. That's this output right here. X post scheduled, LinkedIn post scheduled. And I can tell you this has directly helped my bottom line. I just know for my business, the more I post regularly and consistently on LinkedIn and Twitter, I get inbound leads about consulting. This takes maybe 15, 20 minutes a week. Now, it took me a few hours and weeks and years of experience to be able to develop it, but we're going to talk about how easy that actually can be. So when we're thinking about AI, here's the thing that I think that is a total game changer that I think that a lot of people they don't realize, is that you need to use AI to figure out AI. So you can, and different LLMs have different varying, and so LLM, when I use the term LLM, I just mean like ChatGPT versus Claude versus Manus versus all the others, okay? And so it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's, I think, a simple way to talk about it. So Claude isn't great at identifying what Claude can't or can do, but it can tell you stuff it can't do. Like if you go tell it, I want to do this, it goes, I don't think we can do that, or I don't know how to do that, or I don't have the connections for that. So I will often use ChatGPT to ask it questions about what's the best way to set this up. What's the best AI to use? How should I be hosting a platform? So for example, who here has built a website? Do you know what Vercel is now? And you probably never did before AI. Is anybody using Vercel? Right, so Vercel is like this ability to essentially like host a website for you very quickly and easily, and you can push to it live from GitHub. So AI will tell you, hey, we can do this. You want to launch your own website that's fully managed by AI? That's great. We can do that. You need a GitHub account. You need Vercel or this or another option. So AI basically starts walking you through that plan. And then as you're doing it, you tell AI, like, I'm stuck, or this isn't working. This isn't connecting. So the whole point with all this is you have to start thinking about AI is also the resource to help you figure out how to use AI. It can execute those plans, and I do like using two LMs to check each other and verify action steps, because if Claude tells me it can't do something, I will often go ask ChatGPT that Claude says I can't do this, and it will tell me whether it's true or not. So Claude is sometimes a little bit blind about what it can or can't do. If you've used OpenClaw is amazing because it's like, sure, we can go hack the Pentagon. This is what we'll need to go do this. Like, it's just going to tell you all the ways it think it can make something work. Okay, yeah, so we talked about this before. AI shortcomings. So get used to hearing, I can't do that, or I don't have access to that. Sometimes it's as simple as, with Claude, you just need to reconnect your Gmail, right? Because it's like, I can't see your emails. And you're like, what the crap? Like 5 minutes ago, you were going through my emails. Sometimes you just need to connect it. But the thing is I have an information system degree from the University of Utah, but I'm not that technical. I don't do a ton of dev work or anything, but I just remember one lesson from one instructor who said, people that are good at development aren't necessarily smarter, they're more persistent. So if you want to be successful in AI, you have to learn to be persistent. So while everyone's talking about how fast and easy it is to implement AI and how much like faster you can go through things, I have spent hours, and I mean hours, troubleshooting why Claude won't connect to something it says it can connect to. And so that does happen. So I'm not trying to make it all like rosy skies, it's all easy. There are going to be times where you are so mad and so frustrated trying to figure something out and going back to the AI over and over and over again trying to figure that out. Anyway, that is part of this process. So you have to start to get a little comfortable with that. That's why we have like our Slack. There are, you can search on videos, but you can also use AI to start troubleshooting AI. So yeah, it's about persistence, and yeah, it can be flat out wrong. One of the beautiful things is you can tell it to double check itself, or like I said before, use another AI to double check an AI. Okay, so LLMs, like this is another common question. I think everybody in our human brain, we want to find one software that we can just use and learn and be comfortable in. Does that land for anybody here? Right? So, but the truth is a lot of AIs have different strengths and weaknesses. And so the reason we're talking about this today is this session is I want you to start thinking about AI not as a specific software tool, but as a process and a way to think about that. So for example, I use ChatGPT for a lot of just basic, simple questions or to gut check Claude. I use Claude for a lot of my regular work and projects, but I also use Manus for design and Gemini for other research projects. And now I'm messing with like a notebook LLM, which is connected to Gemini. The whole point here is that you don't actually need to learn the software. It's just helpful to know which one is best suited for what you want to do. So again, Claude is great at, I can give Claude 2 websites and have it create a synthesized design. But if I create a website from scratch, it sucks. That's where like Manus, because Manus can get, I always forget banana, nano banana. Right, so I don't want you to be too worried about that. Like it's more about when you run into a limitation, switch. So if something isn't quite working, so like for example, in my content business, I showed you that ChatGPT it just was not very good at the writing. It started to decay. And so then I pivoted into OpenClaw, and I built a ton of stuff with OpenClaw, and now I'm on Claude because OpenClaw started to be a little bit wonky. And I'm going to explain that to you why. And so the way you think about AI is we actually want to create as much process and what we would call skill files outside of AI. And so an example of this might be like the content that I'm going to show you on my content example. I have all these skill files like a brand guideline, research instructions, LinkedIn formatting posts or post formatting, all this stuff. Those are all separate little files that I just have Claude pointing at. But I could have ChatGPT point at them. I could have Manus or Gemini or anything point at them. I could have Ryan point at them if I wanted to. Or if I was on a team, I could have them in a team repository. So the whole idea is if we start to create these sets of steps or instructions of what AI is doing as a process, it doesn't need to live inside the AI. AI just needs to reference it, and then it uses its own LLM logic, whatever it really knows or doesn't know, to make some of those outcomes happen. Does that make sense when I'm talking about that? Because I do think this is one of the trickiest pieces. The way to think about it is like, you could have all of your files sitting in a Google Drive folder and just have AI say, hey, here's the instruction file, and all of the files that the instruction file references are in this folder. And it's something that simple. Like, here's the key to this room with all these resources. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of all that in a minute, but we're going to go through skill files. And I'm talking fast, but not too fast. Okay, so what is a skill file? So AI already knows a lot of stuff. Like, if you were to hop on Claude right now or ChatGPT and ask it for real estate advice, it would start spitting things at you. Whether it's right or wrong, you know, that's part of the problem. And so one of the beauties when you think about, if you're worried about AI replacing you, if you're worried about where your role or job or work lives in a world of AI, here's the big gap, and here's the big difference. AI doesn't know what good output is. Only you do as an industry expert. So when I read my newsletter output, I've written that newsletter for years. I know what a good newsletter looks like, and I know what good subscription information is. AI sometimes recommends things I hadn't thought of, but in general, I know what it should be saying. So similarly, if you're a real estate agent, AI can be really lethal for helping you research listings or research or how to write different cold emails to potential clients that you want to sign, right? It's not going to be able to, it'll give you a lot of real estate advice, but if you're not a real estate agent, you might have no idea what it's talking about or if it's really valid or not. So when we're thinking about a skill file is going to take a lot of information and give it preset instructions. So a really great example of this is SEO. Everybody has heard of this SEO, search engine optimization, okay? So if you ask AI, you could go onto Claude right now, drop your website URL in there and say, do an SEO audit for me, and it's going to be able to do some things, okay? It'll be able to search some of your site structure, look at some of your content. It's probably going to ask you a few questions about, like, what keywords are you trying to rank for, things like that. So you can just give that to AI. However, if I'm an SEO expert, a skill file might be a set of preset instructions that are involved in an SEO audit. And I could rank those in my personal hierarchies, like, hey, site infrastructure is like down here. I want you to look at content first. I want you to look to see if there's any broken links. I want you to crawl every page and make sure the CTAs are working, right? I can set these preset instructions so that the next time I go to AI, I can say, hey, here's a website I want you to run SEO audit on. Hey, by the way, use my SEO audit instructions. So now what you've taken is this massive computing power of an LLM, of an AI, and you've given it focus. You've given it a filter to look through, and those skill files make them incredibly lethal. So the difference between me and somebody new to the subscription game is we both have access to the same AI resources. They don't have what I've built in skill files, and they don't have my years of experience in developing those skill files. So if you're thinking about, when we're talking about processes and simplifying and automating, skill files is a really simple way to start getting started here. So, all right, so I'm going to walk you through skill files for my content creation process, for my newsletter. So over here, these are all skill files. And you can see a long list of some of these ones that are dated are just example content. But here's a list of what all these are. So the instructions is actually something I've uploaded directly into Claude. And the instructions basically say something like, hey, we're writing a newsletter. This is the steps for it, and here's all the skill files that you reference and the steps to follow. It's something very simple like that. The soul. Now, this is kind of a funny thing because AI doesn't have a soul, so we're trying to give it a soul. So soul is like a way of defining the personality of the AI, because I don't know, one of the first things I started messing with ChatGPT years ago was, hey, write this social post but as Rocky Balboa. Write this post as, like, you know, Tweety from Bugs Bunny, right? So it can take on that persona if you give it. So we're identifying a persona for, and I call mine Marcus. User is info on me, so making sure it understands who I am and my point of view and my perspective. Transcript workflow is the very specific instructions I have for how the newsletter is created. And it's referencing this brand voice guide that I've developed, writing references so it can pick up on my style more accurately. Subscription brands, I have about 60 different subscription brands in here from the top brands in the world that I have it looking at when I want it to think about, find an example. Like, for example, if I say like, hey, gift with purchase is a great strategy, it can go through those 50, 60 brands until it finds an example of a gift with purchase it likes and then write about that, okay? Social media formatting. I've been posting on LinkedIn for years and years, so I have a particular opinion about how a LinkedIn post should be written, and I wrote that. And same thing for Twitter, right? So all of those instructions are in there so that when AI goes to write this newsletter, it goes step by step referencing these things. And there's a specific prompt process. I want it to write the YouTube title first, so it gives me 5 different YouTube titles to pick. Once I pick one, it then writes the YouTube description, and then it writes the newsletter, right? It just goes through that process. The beautiful thing about here, and I'm pretty sure I have this on another slide, is who thinks I wrote all these skill files on my own from scratch? Thanks, James. Who thinks that I used AI to write all those skill files? Exactly. So here's where things get fun, is the skill files make AI more lethal. You use AI to write skill files. We're gonna go through an example, I'm pretty sure in here, of that. But I basically sat on a prompt and started writing some of these things. And then I tell AI, I was doing this with OpenClaw, is, hey, update your instructions to reference this skill file. It's actually very, very easy. So that's kind of how, so I've created this little bit of a visual workflow of what an example might be. So if you say you wanted to get, every day you wake up, you want AI to send you an email about what's on your schedule for that day. It should review your calendar, your email, your Slack, all those things. You want a daily brief. So this is what a workflow for that, a very simple workflow that feels like advanced would look like. So you need a trigger event. So you can either set this to be a time, it could be a specific subject line on an inbound email, it could be any kinds of things that email can monitor, or an AI could monitor. I think the more specific the trigger, the safer you're at, but that's just my opinion. And so the agent, I say agent because everybody talks about agents. Agents make me feel like they're fairly autonomous, whereas most agents are not autonomous. Like Marcus I showed you, only runs when I tell him to run. He doesn't really do anything else. So agent is in quotes for that reason. Say at 6 a.m. he wakes up. He then reviews the instructions and the relevant skill files that are based on that trigger, meaning, hey, go review the calendar, the email, the Slack, and then it starts to do that. It goes and looks at the calendar, pulls context from emails or Slack, and prepares a daily email brief, and then it outputs it to me. Now, I could do this via Slack, I could do this via email, I could do this via WhatsApp or Telegram. There are a lot of ways to do that. It could even create a calendar like hold on your day if you wanted to. But that's like a simple way to kind of visualize this. And again, you could just prompt AI, say, hey, I want to do a daily brief, and it's going to start giving you the instructions on how to do that, including you want some kind of instruction or skill file, and make sure your connections are all there. So more advanced. I didn't get too far into this because, again, I don't want to lose everybody getting really, really deep into this. This is the stuff that I'm starting to play with, that we're building and working on. But say you see, this is an example I see on the internet all the time. And this is fairly easy to do if you wanted to do this. So a lead research agent. So its trigger is every day. It's just every day it wakes up and does this. It's going to find 20 people on LinkedIn that are in your ICP. It's going to draft relevant content messages, send cold outreach, update the CRM. If it doesn't have emails, it could send DMs. Okay? It's going to find past leads and send follow-ups. So in order to make that happen, I need a couple different skill files, right? Make sure I have instructions on how to open LinkedIn, about how we're messaging, maybe the way we craft those. I might need to do a skill file on what my ICP is to give it some kind of instruction. And the goal would be to book meetings. Say I'm having it send a meeting link every single time. Now, this sounds really, really cool. The hard part is you can set this up and it can run. And it could even be halfway effective, but if you don't spend time optimizing it, like reviewing the outputs you're getting and the leads you're getting and the instructions that you have written for the AI, it's going to kind of just baseline and possibly decay over time as a lot of AI does, just because the LLMs are constantly being updated. So I think the fun thing with, if we're thinking about, oh yeah, this is another tip. I'll get to that other point in a minute. One of the other things that has been really, really effective for me is starting to tell AI to save outputs, because who here's had to tell AI to go do something again and it can't remember how to do it, or it doesn't know, like it's lost all the time. So that example I mentioned with the AI event where I had it take the transcripts and stuff like that, I told it to create a CSV output of the talking points as an intermediate step, because I didn't want it to get halfway through the writing 80 emails and forget what was in the videos. So I had it write that as an intermediate step. So then when I gave it the next set of instructions, I told it use that file as reference. So AI had created it, but I made sure it get it. So one of the ways I've been doing this recently is, anybody here know what Notebook LM is? So it's a Gemini product. It allows you to just take publicly listed URLs. So for example, I'm taking all of my published newsletter episodes and all of my published podcast episodes, and I just upload those as URLs, and now I can prompt Notebook LM, and it's just using that information as a resource. So if you're really curious about, say, say you're studying tax law, and there's a bunch of tax law articles, you could upload all of those as URLs and just start asking Notebook LM for create an infographic, create a study guide, right? So what I was doing is I was using AI to populate my Notebook LM, because you can upload 300 resources, and it kept stalling out. And so finally what I just had to do is I had it take all of the URLs that I wanted to take and create a CSV of all of those URLs. And then I told it just copy and paste them in a Notebook LM 10 at a time. And then it worked. So that's what I mean. Sometimes it's easier. This is just I call it a pro tip, if I'm a pro, is just create intermediate steps for AI that are outputs, so that you don't create this really long chain of things that it has to do, because the chain will break. And when the chain breaks, you already have those intermediate points. You can just tell it to restart, if that makes sense. Okay, so this is an example skill file. And I have this on a GIF, because I kind of want you to see, like, it's going to repeat and go through. But so my team, I've got Bomi here from my team, if those of you haven't met her, and I've got my niece, Anya, who lives in Washington. She helps write our weekly newsletter. And we write Slack posts, we have newsletters, we do emails with sponsors and other people too. And so sometimes it's like we're all writing a different way or posting a different way. And so I wanted to create just a really simple reference, because my team is using AI to draft some of these messages. And so what this style guide is just a simple way that has the same writing style for a Slack email, for a Slack, or for an email, or for the newsletter. And my team can use this skill file and drop this into Claude, ChatGPT, again, whatever AI they're using, and say, hey, I'm trying to write this newsletter for these events. Here are the URLs for these events, and reference this writing guide. And then it can create a better output. So again, skill files let us create a filter and focus for the AI, creates a better output. But this has literally just started. You see this in between where it's trying to give me a Visual Studio link. And I'm like, what are you doing? Okay, but this is the output. It's got the voice and tone and the formatting rules, and all of this is based off of, I give it instructions up top. I told it to search my past emails for This Week in Ecom, because that's our newsletter, which I wrote for however many years on my own. And so it has a reference. So this is how simple this is. If you're writing a lot of emails to cold outreach, you should have a skill file. Just something really simple that captures your writing style and maybe your ICP or your offer. Really simple. Yeah, so this is what I was saying before, is like only you know what good output is. So I think one of the great challenges is, if you think about what you're working on every day, you think about, we talk about, yeah, I think I talked about this a little bit, but I was listening to this podcast and people were talking about, is anybody worried about being dumber because they use AI? Okay, so they were talking about this question, people that are using AI that are dumber or that are as smart as they were before or smarter. Okay, so two distinct groups. The people that just use AI to replace tasks they were doing got dumber. The people that were using AI to plug into processes that they had and were treating it as like a partner were as smart or smarter. So if you're looking at your daily schedule of like all the stuff you have to do, and I'm like, okay, if I could just automate that, I could just automate that. That is a good place to start with AI, but you also want to think about how things can enable you. So as an example, that output I said around that AI event, I would never spend that much time on feedback after an event, but AI let me do that. What we're building at Catalyst, hopefully this summer, is a more one-to-one peer messaging, so that, because we're doing more and more events. So if you get a newsletter with like 10 upcoming events, it's a lot to filter through. We want to start sending more personal messages to everybody who's in our community about events we think would be interesting to them. So I normally wouldn't worry about that. I just worry my marketer brain about all the noise about all the events, but now AI is going to let me go a step further. And we are using AI to simplify a few different things. You'll see some examples with these guys coming up. But the thing is, you got to set aside time. You have to set aside time to start playing with this stuff, figuring this stuff out. I think the easiest places to start are on a writing skill file like I just showed you, so that you can use that for emails. Because who here is using AI to help write some emails? Okay, so we're almost all doing it. Or maybe you get a really, really angry letter from your mother-in-law, and you're trying to figure out how to respond in a way that doesn't make your spouse mad, right? Like, okay, I guess not everybody's using AI the way I do. I'm just kidding. But you need to set aside time for that, okay? All right. But yeah, I think starting with a AI skill file, and I would just start with, I want your help creating a skill file, is one of the simplest ways to get started. Okay, so yeah, this is the thing, the thing to final thought in your brain is, think about the ways AI can save time. But if you start thinking about what can AI enable you to do that you would not have been able to do otherwise. So a really simple example would be, say, hey, I have a small business. I have a really simple website. AI can make me a really nice website. Just get on there, start prompting, tell it who you are, what you need to do, your technical proficiency. That's literally how simple it is. AI will start walking you through the process of building a better website for yourself. Going one step further, who here is, give me a small business, any idea? A marketing agency. We'll go with a marketing agency, okay? So I'm sure Hyperbloom already has a beautiful website. She's went like this, so AI could make that website better. But let's say one question that Liz has always had is, I wish that we could give our potential clients a quick win based off of our expertise. Like give me your top marketing problem right now. Like, I wish I could just solve that for people before they even get on a call with us, okay? So, basic website, AI can make that website better. AI could also build inside that website a simple Q&A prompt where you give it your top marketing question, and Liz's team, with the AI they've trained with some skill files and some insights and the power of AI, answers that question for you. And oh, by the way, here's the booking link. So that's what I want you to start thinking about. Is like, what could I start doing with AI that I never would have thought before? Or I thought about it and I thought I needed 10 engineers and $1 million and all this stuff. That's where the fun is. That's where like the future is, and I think that's where the gap is going to be between people that are using it and not, is not so much on time saved. Yes, that's a big component. But for people that are going to be building cool stuff that nobody else would have ever thought about before or has ever built before, but now AI makes it possible. So, okay, that's it for my part. So thank you. Again, I'm going to get back up at the end and do a recap. But if you have any more questions, hop on our Slack, talk to me. But Ryan, why don't you come up and start sharing what you got, and we'll switch over to your slides.
All right, thanks, Matt. One of the things I've loved about my friendship with Matt is he is always helpful. There's not a time of day or time of night if you need help. Matt's been the guy that was always willing to listen and to help, and I love that about him. I also love that he's real big on principles and just like basic things that make a lot of difference. I wanted to show quickly, it's a very green website. It doesn't look this bad in real life. But this is a website for a side project I have where I rent out Starlink kits. And this has been going for, it's like our 5th or 6th year. and the business has been growing year over year. But one of the questions I get all of the time is I don't know which Starlink kit I need for my trip. And so using AI, this is nothing like novel or amazing or new, I made a quiz. And on the site you have 3 choices. This little guy Leo here, he's animated and pops up and down. This is not actual AI, it's just a 3-step quiz. And so as customers come to the site, they choose these things, and the result is that they end up on a landing page with the recommended kit. And there's only 6 kits to choose from based on different power sources and whatnot. But this was a question that I got all of the time. So in my process of thinking of like how to apply AI in my business was what's one thing that I could automate really quickly, but that's also directly tied to revenue and would make a significant impact in the business. This is also pretty washed out, unfortunately. This year compared to last year, just by applying this 3-step quiz, revenue is up 2% and average order value is up 50%. So it's one little thing, one little 3-step quiz that I built with AI, put on the website. It made that impact in business. And this is the first month of the busy season. The rental season is May to October. So if I carry this out through the rest of this season, it's going to be a great year for this little side project. In addition to that, like Matt talked about Vercel and a couple things. So in the ways that how I built this quiz, if I go through this real quick, I use a program called Linear, which is where I keep track of my projects, my to-do list, like everything I need to get done. I use Obsidian, like Matt was talking about, Notebook LM. So Obsidian is where I'm keeping my skill files, it's where I'm keeping instructions, where I'm keeping notes. Obsidian is connected to GitHub, and then I use a program called V0, which is part of the Vercel ecosystem, to build out either the website or specific components. So I built that LeoLink site, and then I had Vercel and V0 build that quiz as portion of that site. The great thing I love about V0 is you can use Claude or Grok or any of the AIs. You can choose which one you want to use. And then it's also connected to GitHub, so that's where all of my code resides. That's where everything comes into GitHub and gets connected. If I'm working on a project for clients, I use Slack and Linear together. Let me go through here real quick. This is what Linear looks like. So these are all of my tasks, my projects. Ignore that they were all due in April. This is Obsidian. So this is like a skill file here for a Clavio MCP. This is GitHub, if you've never seen GitHub before, but this is where all of this content resides. And you see here there's some of these MD files that I use that are specific inside of GitHub that V0 can reference as it needs. This is Slack, where Linear is updating Slack. So if I have a client that I'm working with, I don't have to give the client access to everything I'm doing. I can just add them in this Slack channel, and they're going to get updates every time we complete a certain task or a certain thing. They can also subscribe to these things individually, so maybe the client doesn't want to pay attention to everything, but they can just get updates on those specific things in Linear. You can also create tasks. So in Slack, if a customer or a client writes in and says, hey, I need this done, Linear will automatically add that to my project list in Linear for that particular client. This is V0. So over here on this side is where I'm chatting with the AI. Oftentimes, I use a lot of this for web development stuff. So up at the top there's a screenshot. I literally took a screenshot, circled some things on the screen, said I want more padding here, more margin here, I want to move this there, whatnot. I upload that screenshot and tell it what to do, and then it spits out these outputs. This is essentially the UI to interface with Claude, so it's a little bit different than, I think Matt uses a lot of just like Claude or maybe CLI with OpenClaw. This is like a very user-friendly way to interact with AI and to have it do outputs. So I'm interfacing here on the left side, but it's giving me a preview right here in the screen. This is actually like a live, what you could deploy. Up in that top corner is where it's connected to GitHub, and if I hit where it says view branch, sometimes it says not Git repo, but it's basically merging and sending requests to GitHub to bring code together. And so you can deploy this from V0, and then you would have your live output look something like this. And that's where I use Vercel, like Matt had talked about, For live hosting, my database, my storage, the security domain is all done on Vercel. Real quick, this right here, this is a software that I built. I don't have a live one. I'll keep it real short and not cover all of it. But this software is for the agency side of my business, where I can actually do proposals for web development. I can do email audits, do SEO audits. Inside of this app, I've created a bunch of building blocks. So one of the things I was constantly doing as an agency is creating proposals specific to a client needs. And with this app now, I can go in and I can check boxes that say, hey, I want this, 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 and this in this proposal. And it generates a proposal URL, and I send that URL to the customer. So some of those blocks might be email marketing, might be SMS marketing, might be web development, a landing page, a contact us page, blah, blah. Each one of those building blocks for the proposal has a different price, and the app itself plugs all those together and gives a final quote all broken out in the proposal for the client. So I always have tried to look at things that I'm doing that take me a lot of time that I can automate, simplify, but directly tied to revenue. So this helps me build proposals faster, win more business, makes it a lot simpler that I'm not duplicating things or doing things in Excel and sending out spreadsheets. This, real quick, this is kind of like disconnected, but I think the risk that we see sometimes, this was a recent post on X about tokens and keys, and this is like stage 3 or 4 of using AI. If you're building software and you have tokens and keys, that's your biggest risk. That quiz that I made has no tokens or keys. It has no external code. It's not connected to anything, but it's a very simple, small thing that generates revenue. Versus when I use my agency side of stuff, I have to connect to people's Klaviyo accounts, to OmniSend accounts, other things to pull data into that application. So tokens and keys are I like to think about them as like your wallet and your keys, or your purse and keys at home. You keep those behind a locked door. You keep them in a certain place in the house. You don't share them with everybody. You trust certain people with them, people inside your house. But tokens and keys in AI can often be left out in the open. They can often be included in code where they shouldn't have been. And that's one of the risks we see today. So just as you're playing around and building things, make sure that if you get to the stage where you start having API connections and tokens and codes and things like that, that you're keeping those safe. This is my blog if you wanted to follow me, but I think the biggest point I wanted you to take away from is that there are tons of things in business, there are tons of things in noise and chatter out there in the social media universe today, of people talking about that they're running 20 or 30 agents, it writes code while they sleep, it does all these things automated, versus real things that you can do that will move the needle. So that little quiz, it's not a huge automated thing, but it moves the needle and drives revenue. And so don't be afraid to look at those little foundational things and just tweak those little things in the business that will drive revenue, versus thinking that you need to automate your entire operation, replace people, or learn how to do AI in such a way that it's going to be overwhelming. I love the part that Matt talked about with just starting. 2 years ago, I wasn't building this stuff. 4 years ago, there wasn't a chance I could ever build software. But I started. I found tools that I could understand, tools that worked for me, and I've stuck with those, but also have like allowed new pieces, new information to come in, or new pieces of software. But I also don't chase the current fad or the current thing that just came out, the current thing everybody's talking about. Learn to decipher between that noise of AI and the things that are actually working, the things that some of those bigger businesses are holding on to and moving forward with, rather than just like every new tweet that comes out and somebody's got some new process. That's really all I had.
Hello, everyone. My name's Eric Farmer, and this is not slide one. Oh, there we go. Okay, you're good. So a little bit background around me, which will provide context around what I built here. I was running an agency for 5 years, and I recently stepped down. And one of the reasons was something that Matt brought up, but like you really have to, if you want to learn AI, and you have to spend time in it. And I really wasn't spending time in it the way I wanted to. And so I wanted to get that time back. So started my own business since. I'm an employee of one plus Claude, and it's been amazing. And I've been able to spend that time. And so just want to quickly show you something that I built that has really helped me kind of define a service that I'm providing. So what was that? Oh, the inception of Claude. The reason I call it that is because I've started an AI search optimization service, AEO. There's a lot of names for it, GEO. But for the sake of this conversation, we'll call it AEO, so Agentic Engine Optimization. And I want to help brands show up in ChatGPT, right? Or Perplexity, Google AI Overview, whatever it is. Right now, it's kind of a blue ocean of opportunity out there. There are some brands doing it. Most brands probably aren't feeling the urgency right now, but they should, because you can really build a flywheel, just like SEO 20 years ago. So, also, like what's been said, AI is oftentimes wrong. The outputs are just not correct. And so, as I'm building a service that I actually want to add value and help brands drive more organic traffic, whether that's through Google search or ChatGPT, I want to make sure that how I'm fulfilling on that is accurate and correct. So I basically went into Claude and I said, I need you to go find every single article that has been written about every, I guess I did the major LLMs. So Claude, OpenAI or ChatGPT, Google AI Overview. What am I missing? I know there's another one. Gemini. I did Gemini, which is also Google. And I said, pull every single article from that source and list them here. So that's the provider documentation. So what does OpenAI say about how they recommend products or brands or whatever in its LLM? That was tier 1. Tier 2 is what are, third parties saying about it, academic research. And tier 3, practitioner research, citation tracking studies, field data, yada yada. There's not actually that much out there right now. So this tier 1 is kind of my main source. And then I said, okay, now that you've pulled all of these articles, then you've read them, you know now how Claude or Anthropic recommends what it does, right? So now I want you to summarize that for me, because if I were to go and read all these articles, that would take me days and I would not understand most of it. And I would get bored and quit. But AI is able to do that so much faster within an hour, right? And summarize it for me, and that's what I consumed. And I learned a lot about how all of these LLMs are recommending brands. And I learned all of that in a day, again, instead of weeks or months, and really just quitting because it would have been so boring. All right. Another thing, talking about how it's not always right. So using AI, hopefully it doesn't replace us, right? And it better not, because it's not always going to be correct. So something I had to review was, what Claude surfaced. Perplexity uses a 6-stage retrieval pipeline with a 3-tier re-ranker. Whatever that means. That detail is practitioner inference, not a spec perplexity published. It belongs in the methodology flagged as directional, never stated as fact to a client. So I was having to go through it and really just kind of like pick things apart that maybe didn't make sense. So ultimately, what I'm getting at here is I built a methodology for my service offering, okay? Let's see what we have here. So it took all of those articles and docs, it read everything, summarized it, and it gave me some truths, hard truths, because this is what the LLMs are saying about themselves, and gave me these layers. And so this is now my framework for fulfilling on this service for my clients. So there's a discoverability foundation, on-page citability, off-site authority building, conversion path optimization, and measurement and iteration. And then from this, I'm able to, I'll show you, let's see if it's on here. So you can't really see it, but this is like the cover page of a 43-page AEO methodology internal doc that I use. So it's not client facing, it's just for me and Claude, because Claude made it. But from that, I'm able to fulfill on those 5 layers, and I know that I am actually adding value to these brands, because I don't know if you guys are in this world at all, but tools, AEO tools, they're a dime a dozen. And you know, you can see a lot out there right now that they're claiming to save you thousands of dollars, you know, versus the old school way of doing SEO. But there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of fluff because you can build stuff so fast. But what I wanted to do was make sure that I was building it the right way. And I'm not just, you know, making SEO sexy and not really knowing what I'm doing. And so now this is my foundation. And so everything that I do for my clients in Claude, it understands my methodology that I was able to build. And it took me a day, maybe a day and a half, you know, and this 43-page doc I did read. I went through it, and this is probably the 10th version of it. It wasn't just the first one, and it spit out, and I said, okay, we're good to go. So yeah, that's kind of what I did, and you can scan that, connect with me on LinkedIn, and this is an AEO scorecard. You know, I'll send you if you want it, and you can go through it for your website. Email me, text me if you have any questions. That's it.
I didn't do slides. I guess I was supposed to, but that's all right. I'm gonna show you some stuff live on my computer. If it's okay, I'll just add a couple just thoughts on what Matt said. If you could do one thing tomorrow, in my suggestion, it would be take a prompt engineering class online. AI is the stupidest genius that has ever been created. It's like a 5-year-old with a 200 IQ. It will lie to you. It'll tell you what you want to hear, and all kinds of dumb things. And if you don't know how to catch those, you'll get a lot of bad outputs, and you'll spend a lot of time fixing it. The 50% of that is your fault because you don't know how to ask it the questions the right way. You kind of have to tell it things like a lawyer and very directly, and not use slang and not use just other things that are confusing to it. And I've did that a lot before I kind of learned. I'm like, no, I have to talk to this thing very deliberately. So that's one thing I would say. Knowing the difference between predictive and generative AI is important. So predictive AI is essentially if you give it data, it will give you analysis and outputs of that, essentially math. So if you give it spreadsheets and say, tell me about this, that's predictive AI. Anything it's working off of data and then providing you back information, that's predictive. And then generative is it's creating things from scratch. Show me a picture, create me a picture of a dog, you know, flying a plane across the moon or whatever. That's generative AI. And so knowing the difference between those two, and then you'll see the term agentic a lot, right? Everyone uses agentic, no one's actually doing it. I would argue that agentic doesn't even truly exist yet. Agentic AI is where the AI is doing things for you that you didn't ask it to do. You've given it access to all your emails, all your databases, everything, and then it's going and thinking of things that you might want to know that you didn't ask it. If you go to a trade show like Shop Talk or something, you'll see agentic on every single booth. It's not there yet. So just kind of know those terms and what they are. I'll just give you a couple examples of some things I did. So I had to do my taxes this year for me. I spent almost $4,000 last year doing my taxes, and they're fairly complicated. I have multiple 1099s, K1s, I have 4 LLCs, 2 of them partnerships, one's a sole prop, one's a pass-through. I have rental properties, capital gains. I have all the things you could probably think of that are on an average, might be on someone's tax return. And I had Claude go through the whole thing and do it all. And it got it, I would say 94% right. And then I dumped all of that into Perplexity and said, double check all of this. And it found 2 significant errors that were helpful. Here's the thing neither of them could do. Neither of them could fill out the PDF forms. So when I say it's the smartest, dumbest thing you've ever seen, they can do all of my taxes, but it can't actually input the forms properly. The numbers were all over the place. I'm gonna have to go back still and put them back in the forms like they're supposed to be. So it's kind of crazy what it can and can't do sometimes. On our fridge, I put up a sign and this is from Jensen Huang, who runs NVIDIA, if you didn't know, but I listened to an hour-long podcast with him the other day, and he said something. He said, AI will automate and replace your tasks. It won't replace your purpose. So I think it's important, whether you're a manager or a worker bee of some kind, to know that your tasks are going away. Your daily do this, those are going to go away. But your purpose for being there won't. And so figure out how to automate your tasks and increase your purpose at what you do, and you'll survive the AI whatever's coming as far as some job losses go. How I look at the big ones, I think of GPT. I use it like Google. I ask it questions all the time. Tell me this, tell me that, compare these products, kind of like Matt was saying, all that kind of stuff. It's great at that. Tell me how many I'll give it like, I need 600 boxes of this with these centimeter dimensions. How many of these will fit in a 40-foot high cube shipping container? It'll do it in seconds, right? It's great for that. Claude is like my work, like do some work for me, and that works really well. And then I use Perplexity if I need it to be super accurate. Perplexity is by far the most accurate AI out there. And that's just me saying that. That's somewhat accepted. It still gets it wrong sometimes, but it's very good at that piece. One thing on skill files that Matt did mention is that I don't build my own skill files. I go to GitHub and find ones that others have built who are smarter than me, because they are better prompt engineers than I am and generally ask and tell it better questions to make the skill files from. And then I take that and I might add what I need to. So I'm like, for taxes, I went and got 4 or 5 different skill files from GitHub and then said, here's what might be unique for me, and then built my own skill around that. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, so that's just a few things. Do we get this going or to go to sleep? Oh, okay, hang on. And my finger pad reader has gone to poop on this brand new laptop already, so that's good. AI can't fix that. So here's a sheet that I made. We were using Sage. I don't know if you guys know Sage. They do a lot of inventory software, things like that. We're paying $6,000 a year for Sage for essentially a forecasting and inventory system. I had Claude build me one. It took me about 2 weeks of just poking at it for 20, 30 minutes every day. And what I did was I dumped in all of my Shopify. So here's my Shopify actuals. And let me see if I can make this a little bigger. Maybe not. And then what I told it is go look for any swings of more than 10 or 20% and fill in what those should be based on the sales of other products. So if we were out of something, it actually filled it back in with what it should have been. So it adjusted for stockouts, and then it forecast for me. It built a methodology page showing me how it figured out what it figured out. And then here I have my order planner, and I've put in, so here's an order coming. It's completed on May 16th, and then it ships and it'll arrive here, and then it calculates when I'm gonna run out of each product. And then I can go back over here to my planning tab, and I can change my lead time days. I can change my shipping time days, all that stuff. I can put in percentages for I know products that are going to boom, things like that. It essentially, and it does all my order and inventory values here, so I can see my total inventory value. It did all that for me, and it's essentially a fairly decently complex Excel sheet. So that's the kind of thing you can build in Claude. I built this in Cowork. So when you go into Claude, there's 3 main things you can choose from. There's chat, Cowork, and code. Chat is kind of like ChatGPT. Just ask it questions, ask it to do things. Cowork is projects where it's accessing your computer. Matt is very right in that it sucks at accessing the outside world. So when I give it a link to a open file on my Google Drive, like a Google Sheet, oh, I can't access this right. And it'll try all these different things to access it, and then you have to allow it, and it's really bad at that still. But it's supposed to allow for that, and it'll save files to your computer. So you saw that on this spreadsheet. It can create this. What it can't do is store it and modify the same file over again and update it. It has to save a new file every time. So it's another example of how it's brilliantly smart, but yet kind of useless dumb at the same time. And you just kind of got to get used to those things and work through them. So I'm going to show you one more thing. So I told it, so we make products for pets. and they're specifically sized. And so it's really hard for people to figure out which product they should get for their dog. So using a single prompt, I said, basically, create me a slider where I can have people select 3 variables about their dog and then show them what product they should get of ours. Now, we haven't put this live yet. We need to modify a few things on it, but from a single prompt into Claude, it built that for me. Boom. And it's actually almost good enough to go on a site. I would change it some, but really it's 80% of the way there. So here's the prompts I used to build that inventory planning sheet. And what's nice now is I can go in and I can just ask it things. So based on these quantities as of today, how many of this Navigate product do I need to get through July 15th for these 2 SKUs? It'll go through with all the projections to say, okay, here's what you're going to need. Here's what you're going to be short. You're going to be fine on this one. So it does all that for me, and it's pretty great that way. Here's Perplexity. Oh, this is what I did my taxes in. Hang on, let's see what else I was going to show you. I'm trying to go fast because I know we're at the end here. I don't need to show you that one. We talked to Inventory Planner. Oh, I know what the last one was. So, raise your hand if you use Shopify. Awesome. Who uses Shopify Sidekick, the little AI tool? If you're not using it or not using it to its potential, you are missing out. If you use Shopify, I'm going to show you the coolest thing you're going to see today. I promise you. It is crazy good. I think it has Claude on the Anthropic on the back end, but they built their own, and then it'll reference up to a second layer if it needs to. But I just threw a prompt in here. So this is one of our sales channels. I said, compare for me the last Friday through Sunday together against the last 6 same periods. Give me sessions, conversion rate, gross and net dollars. Split the whole thing into 2 pieces, domestic and international. Give me 5 bullet points and info about trending issues and other outliers you can use. Identify any hero products or significant volume changes for any SKUs, and then show me the top 3 EU countries. It'll take it about... It's not fast. It'll take this about probably 45 to 60 seconds, but it will do it, and it will do it well. In fact, I already did it just to test this one, so I'll show you. Oh wait, this is my comparing Saturday performances, so let's go back to this one. Okay, so it's already done. So it's going to go through here, and it's going to show me all my net sales, my conversion rates, my international credentials, and it's going to be key observations. It's going to give me everything I just asked for. It is really good at running analytics on your sales using natural language, right? What SKU is suddenly not performing as well? I saw a drop last weekend. Go figure out what happened. It'll go through and start analyzing everything and say, oh, you had bot traffic from Norway that caused, Paraguay to not convert as well. Like, it'll find all kinds of really crazy stuff. It is super good. It is a hidden secret that nobody knows about yet. So go into your Shopify, click on, I think it's called, Sidekick. Go in there and just start asking it really tough questions about your sales and your products and your conversions and your sessions and your traffic and everything else. It'll start telling you really cool stuff. So that's my little golden ticket for you for today. All right, that's everything.
Thanks, man. That was great. Okay. If I can figure out how to plug an HDMI cable in. Okay, that's basically everything. Well, I mean, that's basically everything. Let's see if this comes up. This thing will pop up in a second. But thanks for hanging out, everybody. Big thank you again to our lunch sponsor, Ryan. I don't know if you noticed when he was looking at his task, but he's stuff like help people launch on Walmart, multi-channel. We were doing stuff with Channel Advisor back in the day, so Ryan's been on all over it. Thank you for also Ryan, Eric, and Aaron sharing some examples there. You guys are welcome to hang out. Upcoming events, June 5th, we're going to have a founder conversations with the founder of House of Foils and Little Milk Bar. It's going to be a great conversation. And then our big conference is back in August. Ticket sales are now live and available. There's a little special thing right here. If you're in the Slack, don't buy your ticket today. Wait till Thursday because we have a special sale for Slack members, which is free. Free to be in the Slack. But anyway, the ticket prices go up end of the month. So if you were there in April, come back in August. We have already some killer speakers lined up, a ton more of great stuff. And I think that's everything. I think there's maybe a link to the, yeah, you'll get a feedback form. for future events. If you want to take a minute, appreciate it. And that's everything. Thanks, everybody. Oh yeah, take and eat more pizza because Ryan can't take all that home. And you're welcome to hang out. There's some conference rooms if you want to hang out here. This is Anada. It's a co-working space.